Most people think emotional manipulation is loud, obvious, and dramatic. They imagine explosive arguments, welcome to emotional shadow, visible jealousy, controlling demands, or toxic behaviors you can easily point to and say, "That's manipulation." But the truth is far more unsettling. The most powerful emotional influence in relationships doesn't show up in shouting matches or sudden outbursts. It hides inside the natural moments. It hides in the small gestures, the soft tones, the silent pauses, and the innocent-looking behaviors you've never questioned. Because the most potent manipulation isn't the kind you recognize. There is an entire world of covert emotional moves quietly shaping the dynamics between partners, long before either of them realizes what's actually happening. And what makes them so dangerous is that they emerge not from malice, but from instinct, from habits we learned unconsciously, from wounds we never resolved, from patterns passed down through relationships we never scrutinized. If you've ever wondered why certain situations in relationships feel strangely familiar, or why you react in ways that don't match the present moment, or why some people seem to steer your emotions without raising their voice, then you've already brushed against these hidden forces. To understand how these covert emotional moves operate, we need to step back into the history of relationship psychology, the theories that changed how we see intimacy. Early psychoanalysts like Freud hinted that much of our romantic behavior is shaped by unseen internal conflicts. Later, John Bowlby introduced attachment theory, suggesting that childhood emotional experiences create invisible templates that determine how we give and receive love as adults. And then came the work of researchers like Murray Bowen, who explained how emotional systems within families unconsciously shape individual behavior, creating relational patterns that repeat across generations. But none of these theories fully predicted what we now know, that couples often engage in emotional negotiations, power exchanges, and subtle psychological maneuvers that neither partner consciously acknowledges. The twist is that these moves don't feel manipulative. They feel like just how relationships are. And that's why they slip past awareness so easily. The origins of these covert moves usually start long before a relationship even begins. As children, we learn how to secure emotional safety, whether through expressing needs, suppressing needs, pleasing others, withdrawing, or asserting dominance. These strategies are not taught through words. They're absorbed through the emotional atmosphere we grew up in. A child with unpredictable caregiving learns to anticipate emotional shifts and adjust behavior to keep peace. A child with emotionally distant caregivers learns to minimize needs so they don't feel rejected. A child whose parents only respond to de-stress learns to use emotional intensity to get attention. These early strategies become the unconscious emotional operating system we take into adult relationships. And because they feel like instinct, they are repeated without question. As relationships develop, these childhood strategies quietly reappear in moments of stress, insecurity, or vulnerability. You might notice yourself holding back truth to avoid conflict, not because your partner is unsafe, but because past experiences taught you silence equals survival. You might find yourself comforting your partner before expressing your own emotions, not because you're selfless, but because you learned that managing others' feelings protects you from rejection. You might become overly agreeable, overly independent, overly forgiving, or overly reactive, all because old emotional rules drive current decisions. Slowly, these behaviors shape the emotional atmosphere between partners. Each person starts responding not to who the other truly is, but to who they expect them to be. The past starts scripting the present, and subtle emotional moves begin dictating the flow of the relationship. Over time, the impact becomes more visible. Conflicts arise not from what's happening in the moment. One partner might withdraw after sensing disappointment, and the other interprets the withdrawal as rejection. One partner raises their voice out of fear, and the other interprets it as aggression. One partner tries to fix everything too quickly, and the other interprets it as control. Every action becomes a reaction to an emotional rule that neither partner remembers creating. This is where breaking points emerge. One of the most common breaking points is emotional misalignment, when partners feel they re-speak in different emotional languages, even though nothing dramatic is happening. Another is emotional overload, where one person becomes the emotional caretaker, absorbing tension to keep balance until they collapse under the weight of it. And then there's emotional distance, the slow drift that happens when subtle moves go unrecognized and unaddressed. The relationship doesn't break suddenly. It erodes quietly through misunderstood intentions. The consequences on emotional intimacy are profound. Trust weakens, not because someone lied, but because emotional truths were never clearly expressed. Connection fades, not from lack of love, but from competing unspoken rules. Attraction weakens when one partner feels over-responsible for the emotional climate. Or resentment grows when someone realizes they've been adjusting their behavior for months or years to manage another person's unconscious needs. Attempts to fix these issues often fail because people try to solve visible symptoms rather than invisible patterns. Couples might argue about communication styles, boundaries, or needs, but rarely trace emotional reactions back to their origins. They try better communication, but without understanding the emotional operating system underneath, communication becomes another battlefield. They try to compromise, but compromise doesn't help when the real issue is the unspoken emotional pressure each partner unconsciously exerts. Now, when we connect all of this to modern relationship challenges, the patterns become even clearer. Studies consistently show that most relationship conflicts stem not from major betrayals, but from misinterpreted emotional cues. Researchers estimate that around 70% of recurring arguments follow predictable emotional loops formed early in the relationship. Loops neither partner realizes they've created. What's more, digital communication and social media add new layers of subtle influence. Delayed replies generating anxiety, curated online personas creating insecurity, and silent assumptions filling the gaps between messages. Manipulation today rarely looks like domination. It looks like emotional habits. It looks like withholding affection, not because of punishment, but because of fear. It looks like overreference, not because of safety, but because of insecurity. It looks like caretaking, not from love, but from the fear of being abandoned. These patterns repeat across relationships, generations, and cultures, because they are built into the emotional wiring of human connection. To bring this all together, there are 3 essential takeaways every person should understand about covert emotional moves. Takeaway 1. Not all emotional influence is manipulation, but all unconscious emotional habits influence. The danger is not intention. When you don't understand your own emotional patterns, they control you. The most damaging patterns in relationships are the silent ones. The behaviors that feel normal because they've existed since childhood. Emotional clarity starts with questioning what feels natural, not what feels wrong. Takeaway 3. Healthy relationships are built not on perfect communication, but on conscious emotional responsibility. When both partners recognize their own patterns, the emotional atmosphere becomes safer, clearer, and far more honest. As a final reflection, remember love is fragile, not because people are weak, but because the emotional forces shaping connection operate beneath awareness. The more you understand the silent moves within yourself, the more you can build relationships rooted in intention rather than instinct. If you've found this exploration opening, insightful, or challenging in the best way, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video. This channel is dedicated to uncovering the hidden emotional mechanisms that shape your romantic life, helping you understand yourself and your relationships with deeper clarity than ever before.